The following program is a Nighthawk Network presentation.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Buck here. It is time for the Indie Experience, and this is your host, Miss Giga.
Welcome, everyone, to the Indie Experience. Tonight, we got a genre that, in all my years of doing radio now into podcasting, I've never played, and that is classical. So, if you're a lover of classical music, sit back and enjoy this music when we get into the playlist segment of the show. So, in segment 2, we will be learning the origins of classical music. And then the third segment, as always, is dropping gems. So we're gonna get into a commercial break, and then we're gonna get to that playlist. Got 5 great classical songs for you. And once we get into the playlist, the first one is gonna be Minority.
All right, y'all. Again, this is Indie Experience. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate you. Tonight, we're doing classical. When we come back, be ready and enjoy. Till then, we are giving you words from our Nighthawk Network. Nighthawk Network, our voices for our people. Stay tuned for a special message at the end of this broadcast.
Hello. It's another glorious day, my T-Sippers, and you know what time it is. I hope you have all of your comforts together because it's time to dish tea. And your dish is darlings. With Big Meat.
Can't wait. It's time to dish tea with Big Meat. It's time to dish tea with Big Meat. It's time to dish tea with Big Meat. It's time to dish tea with Big Meat.
Darling.
All right, y'all. Before we get the show back started up, I do, if you would allow me to, Miss Rowe, want to do a special shout out to one of our affiliates in the Nighthawk Network. That would be that of Dr. Marla Facey. It is her birthday today, so I want to wish her a
Happy
very
birthday, Dr. Marlo.
birthday. to Dr. Marla. Please check out her show that I broadcast on the network on Monday evenings. No weapons formed against us shall prosper on her inspirational radio network that comes on at 9 o'clock p.m. on Mondays. All right, back to the show.
So, we are now in our segment, the playlist. Now, for those who may be new to the show or have seen the show, you know that the playlist is where I play 5 songs by an artist. Could be one artist, 5 songs from them, or a multitude of artists. Well, tonight's songs, classical songs, are by the RTS Orchestra. That's Road to Stardom Orchestra. All songs we're going to hear tonight by the Road to Stardom Orchestra. And the first one we're going to get into is called Minority. Now, when I created this one, I said, what would it sound like if you put classical and R&B together? So this is a classical song with a touch of R&B. And that was Minority. Yes, that's a classical instrumental with a touch of R&B added to it. Now the next one we're going to get into is called Contemplation. And it's basically the same like Minority. It's a classical tune with a touch of R&B by the RTS Orchestra, Roger Stardom Orchestra. All right, yeah, that was Contemplation. And the next one is called Unseen Tide. That's just a plain old classical song. I didn't throw no R&B in this one. I I see what's good, Hugh, sports guru. Yep. And thank you for the suggestion, because it was an episode that I did that Hugh asked the question if I play classical, and he's the one that put the idea in my head to do a classical show. So thank you, Hugh. Yes, that is Unseen Tide. That was Unseen Tide. That doesn't have that's just straight classical. So I want to correct an error on the song Contemplation. That is straight classical. That it has no R&B in it. I said it had R&B in it. It's just straight classical. Next one we're going to get into is called Silent Wisdom. Silent Wisdom. You're so welcome. Yep, so Silent Wisdom is the next one by the Rhodes Stardom Orchestra. If you tuned into the jazz episode, you'll notice that we have a jazz orchestra by the same name. Yep. So if you go back a couple of episodes, you'll see we have a jazz. So if you're into jazz, we got a jazz episode by the RTS Jazz Orchestra. Yep. So yeah. So the next tune should be that was we just heard silent. Did we hear Silent Echoes yet? So that's the one we're getting into, and then after that will be Echoes. So if you love classical music, I got more. I'm gonna do a second episode where I got more classical. So if you love classical music, we got the Simmons Orchestra with some classical joints as well. Silent Wisdom. And that was Silent Wisdom by the RTS Orchestra. And our last one in this playlist is called Echoes. This is straight classical, no R&B mixed in. Straight classical. Echoes right there by the RTS Orchestra. And you should have this one in that I sent you. We're gonna make it a bonus song, and it's called Serenade. It should be Serenade. If you don't have it, we don't have to play it. But if you do have Serenade, okay, you're muted.
Let's try that again. Yeah. Not only do we have that one, but I too have a bonus song from the
So
eBuds
then that
Ghetto Orchestra. It is called
okay. So we got
Sunshine
two bonus tracks
on the
that
String.
we are about to play for y'all. And this last classical one from the RTS Orchestra is called Serenade. Now this one has a touch of R&B in it.
All right. Serenade, here we go, y'all.
That song right there was Serenade by the RTS Orchestra. Now, there'll be another episode where I do classical. And that orchestra will be called the Simmons Orchestra. And it'll be 6 great classical songs by the Simmons Orchestra. Now we get into the next second bonus. E, take it away.
There you had it. Short and sweet. What
Yeah.
inspired this track was I was looking for a song that reminded me of the opening theme to the TV show Dynasty. You remember that show from back in the day?
Yes, I remember that show.
So yes, I was looking for something along those lines. So that's what got me Sunlight on the Strings. I like it. Hope you guys did
Yeah.
too.
So that is it for the playlist. We're going to take a commercial break. And when we come back from commercial break, we're going to learn the origins of classical music.
All right, again, y'all, this is Road to Stardom, episode 16, Classical. Hopefully, y'all enjoyed those songs. Again, you can go back on YouTube and watch this episode and listen to them again if you so desire. And meanwhile, more commercials from Nighthawk Network, our voices for our people. Take it away, Hugh.
If you're building your dream from scratch, mic in one hand, hustle in the other, this one's for you. Road to Stardom Network and Nighthawk Network present a podcast for the indie by the indie, all genres, all grinds. From hip-hop to metal, jazz to trap, we're breaking boundaries. And it's not just artists. Entrepreneurs, creatives, and self-made bosses, we see you. We're giving you the spotlight. This ain't mainstream, this is your stream. Coming soon. Be ready.
The following program is a Nighthawk Network presentation.
And we are back. Now, we're going to talk about the origins of classical music. Now, we did R&B so far. We got a lot of genres, but classical is a new one. And I like classical, but it's not something when I was doing radio that I would play, even though I did like classical. So I am going to share with y'all so you can see what I'm sharing with y'all. And this is, I don't know if it's big enough to read or big enough to see, but I hope you can see it while I'm reading it to y'all. It says, though we can assume that music began far before 1150, the medieval period is the first in which we can be sure as to how music sounded during the time. Most noted manuscripts from the medieval period came from the church or places connected to the church, and so most pieces have a religious subject. Instruments used during this time included, okay, I gotta make it bigger so I can read the whole thing. It says, so here's diversity amongst composers I'm going to share with y'all. It says, though much focus is placed on male Western classical composers, many composers throughout history have a rich diversity that can be brought to light and celebrated. We want to spotlight a few composers you can look to for their beautiful, timeless compositions. Florence Price. From Little Rock, Arkansas, Florence Price was a composer, music teacher, and pianist, organist, and composed over 300 works in 1933. She became the first African American to have a major symphony orchestra perform her music. Thank you, Ms. Price. Joseph Bologna Chevalier, dang, he had a long name. Oh, so it's two different. Okay, it's two different composers. It's Joseph Bologna, Chevalier de Saint Georges, a French classical composer of. Oh, it is one name, but he got a long name. He's a French classical composer of color who was also an accomplished violinist and conductor. His compositions were well known throughout Europe and included symphonies, violin concertos, duets, sonatas, and string quartets.
I know this person. That's Chabot. They did a movie about him a couple years ago.
Ah, so I said the name wrong.
Yes.
Okay.
His name is Chabot, but yeah, that was his original name, the Jacques, the first part of the name. But no, in
Okay.
France, that was his entitled name that they gave him, Young Chevalier. It was said that he once did a musical battle against Mozart and showed out on him. Like I said, if you see the movie, very good movie.
So the next composer is a German composer, Clara Schumann, pianist and piano teacher from the Romantic era. She was a distinguished musician who had a great musical impact and composed many works, including piano pieces, a concerto, choral works, and chamber music. You may have heard her husband, a fellow accomplished composer, Robert Schumann. Amy Beach. From New Hampshire, Amy Beach was a prodigy pianist and the first American woman to achieve widespread recognition as a symphony composer. There are many more wonderful composers we have not mentioned here who contributed to great works of art to the classical music. Now let's get into 6 musical periods. The 6 musical periods are classified as medieval, Renaissance, Baroque, classical, romantic, and the 20th, 21st century, with each fitting into an approximate time frame. So 1150 to 1400 is medieval. From 1400 to 1600 is Renaissance. From 1600 to 1750 is Baroque. 1820 is classic. 1820 from 1750 to 1820 was classical. Then from 1820 to 1900 was romantic, and then from 1900 to the 20th and the 21st century was romantic. It says, though we can assume that music began from, okay, this is the medieval. Instruments used during this time included the flute, the recorder, which is basically a cheap replica of the flute, plucked string instruments like the lute. Early versions of the organ and fiddle also existed. So a fiddle is also it's the same as a violin, but the way it's played is not played like the violin, so they call it the fiddle. It says perhaps the most known type of music to come out of the medieval period was the Gregorian chant. Gregorian chants were monophonic, a single unaccompanied melodic line, and most commonly sung by monks. Take a moment to listen to the Gregorian chant below. Notice the notation in the background. Okay, they gave us a video to hear the chant. I'm not playing the video. We're going to keep going. It says, though the monophonic type style was a staple in the medieval period, it's important to note that polyphonic vocal genre also developed in this time. Polyphony is use of multiple independent voice types as opposed to the one melodic line in monophonic singing. It can be concluded that the introduction of harmony began in the medieval period. It says, though a large portion of the music written in this era is not attributed to any author. Okay. It says Renaissance. Now we're in the Renaissance era. The Renaissance brought significantly increased amounts of harmony and polyphony into the music, and most composers were focused on choral music. I think this is when probably when opera started coming in. The Renaissance was a golden age for choral composition, especially in a cappella compositions. I guess they mean a cappella compositions, but the way it is written here looks like a cappella composition. It says religious music continued to flourish throughout the entire Renaissance period, including new forms such as masses, anthems, psalms, and motets. Some composers of sacred music began to adopt secular forms such as the madrigal. Towards the end of the period, so they're giving you more songs to listen to. So if you want to know about the madrigal and all that, it says listen to the Silver Swan, famous choral piece still sung today by a composer. It's a choral piece called the Silver. So that's a choral piece called the Silver Swan. Instrumentation became more prominent during this period with the introduction of early brass instruments like slide trumpet, cornet, valveless trumpet, and sackbut. Adapted string instruments, viol, rebec, um, lyre lute, guitar, the harpsichord. See, I knew that one. I knew about the harpsichord. Small percussion instruments, triangle, tambourine, bells, small drums. Early woodwind instruments, reed pipe, bagpipe, transverse flute, recorder. The second half of the Renaissance period was incredibly influential as composers began to move away from modal system of harmony and toward the organization of major and minor scales. The strong sensation of each piece having a definitely tonal center or key became commonplace in the Renaissance period. Notable composers of the Renaissance include William Byrd, John Dowland, Orlando Gibson, Giovanni, Giovanni Pierluigi da Palestrina, and Thomas Tallis. Now we get into the Baroque period. Expanding upon the end of the Renaissance period, the Baroque period saw the creation of writing music in a particular key. However, the Baroque period, commonly known for complex pieces and intricate harmonies, still this period laid the groundwork for the next 300 years of music. The idea of modern orchestra was born, along with opera, the concerto, sonata, and cantata. Choral music was no longer king, and as composers turned to compose instrumental works for various ensembles, classical music gradually began to work its way into society, being played outdoors at dinner parties and special functions, or as spectacle in the form of opera. George Frederick Handel's Water Music is an excellent example of a typical Baroque period piece composed for King George and performed on the River Thames. As instrumental pieces became more prominent, individual instruments advanced drastically. Many new instruments emerged, such as the oboe, bassoon, cello, contrabass, and forte piano, an early version of the piano. The string family of the Renaissance was replaced with stronger sounds from the violin, viola, and the cello. The intervention of the harpsichord flourished, and all existing woodwind and brass instruments were updated and advanced. The Baroque period also introduced stronger percussion with instruments like the timpani, snare drum, tambourine, and the castanets. Early Baroque composers included Claudio Monteverdi, Alessandro Scarlatti, Henry Purcell, Jean-Baptiste Lully, while later Baroque composers included Johann Sebastian Bach, I like Bach, George Frederick Handel, George Philip Telemann, Jean-Philippe Rameau, Domenico Scarlatti, and Antonio Vivaldi. I know Vivaldi, I know Bach, but some of these other names I've never heard of. These later composers contributed substantially in the transition to classical music. Classical. The term classical music has two meanings. The broader meaning includes all Western art music from the medieval era to the 2000s. The specific meaning refers to the music from the 1750s to the early 1820s. We are discussing the specific meaning in this section. The classical period expands upon the Baroque period, adding a majorly influential new song form, the sonata. This period also saw the development of the concerto, symphony, sonata, trio, and quartet. The classical period is most known for its compulsion for structural clarity in music. Though this period didn't add any majorly new instrumentation, the harpsichord was officially replaced with the piano or forte piano. Orchestras increased size, range, and power, and instrumentations overall had a lighter, more evident texture than Baroque music, making it less complicated. Notable composers from the classical period include the musical giants Joseph Haydn, Ludwig van Beethoven, my favorite, Franz Schubert, and of course, and Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Those are my two I think I like the most. Beethoven and Mozart. Says listen to one of Mozart's most famous pieces is Rondo alla Turca from his Piano Sonata No. 11, performed by music note signature artist Bausile. Now we're getting into the Romantic period of classical music. Says Beethoven and Schubert bridged the gap between the classical and Romantic periods of music. Just as one might assume from the word romantic, this period took classical music and added overwhelming amounts of intensity and expression. As the period developed, composers gradually let go of heavily structured pieces and gravitated towards drama and emotion. The Romantic era was the golden age of virtuoso, where the most difficult music would be performed with nonchalant ease. Instrumentation became even more prominent, with orchestras growing to higher numbers than ever before. Composers experimented in new ways, trying out unique instrumentation combinations and reaching new horizons in harmony. Public concerts and operas moved away from the exclusivity of royalty and riches and into the hands of the urban middle class society for all to enjoy. The Romantic period was also the first period where national music schools began to appear. This era produced some of music's most adored composers, including Hector Berlioz, Frédéric Chopin. Chopin is a good one. Felix Mendelssohn, Robert Schumann, Franz Liszt, Johannes Brahms, Peter Tchaikovsky, and Richard Wagner. The very end of the Romantic period also brought about composers Gustav Mahler, Richard Strauss, Giacomo Puccini, Jean Sibelius, Camille Saint-Saëns, Gabrielle Faure. I can't say her. I might be saying her last name wrong. It's Faure with apostrophe over the E. And Sergei Rachmaninoff. Those are the composers of the Romantic period. Now we're going to get into current 20th century, 21st century, and current. It says we got Impressionist, we got Expressionist, we got Modern. So Impressionist was 1890 to 1925. Expressionist was 1908 to 1950. Modern was 1890 to 1975. Postmodern was 1930 present. And contemporary was 1945 to present. However, these subgenres are normally lumped into one large category since there are so many diverse and opposing styles. The 20th and 21st centuries can also be described as free reign for composers. Each period we've described up until the 20th and 21st centuries had a general set of guidelines and characteristics that most composers followed. Over time, composers have been pulling further and further away from rules and restrictions into what is ultimately now a place of complete free reign. Classical music is now a place for the ultimate experimentation, and though it may not be as popular in 2018 as it is in the 1800s, it certainly has not disappeared. Prolific composers in this period include Igor Stravinsky, Bela Bartok, Dmitri, y'all get with these last names, Shostakovich, Claude Debussy, Maurice Ravel, Gustav Holst, Arnold Schoenberg. Possibly one of the most famous classical pieces of music ever was composed during this time. Clair de Lune, like Claude Debussy. Innovations in technology advancement. Technology developments have had a great impact on the creation, performance, and distribution of classical music in the modern era. Recording technology that made it possible to create recordings of compositions we can listen to forever, unlike past eras that relied on live performances, of which we have no recordings. Computers and composing software have made composing digitally a more accessible pursuit, as well as the creation and distribution of digital sheet music. Creating, performing, and sharing the joy of classical music has never been easier. Classical music has come a long way, and countless composers have contributed to making it what it is today. Perhaps what we've learned more than anything is that classical music is one thing, timeless. We still look back to the beginning from time to time and remember the beautiful music so many people made. We are thankful for their hard work, for the wonder they gave us, and the gift of classical music that always keeps giving. And that is the origins of classical music. Yes, that is the origins of classical music. Yes, so when we come back from commercial break, we're going to get to our last segment, which is the Dropping Gems segment. Yes, and I will have some gems to drop for y'all. And then we are out of here. So let's get into the commercial break. So I have a commercial before we get into an actual commercial. On Sunday is the Speaking Freely Women's Get-Go show. I don't think E put the video up to share what would you do segment, what the scenario is. So I'm gonna give it to you. So the what would you do scenario for this Sunday's on Speaking Freely Women's Get-Go is, what if you was dating a twin and they never told you they were a twin? So the whole time you've been dating, you never knew that the guy or girl you was dating was a twin. And here's the caveat, that your friends is out hanging out, they see said twin and think it's your mate, and sends you a message telling you your mate is cheating on you. But it's not really your mate, it's their twin because you never knew they had a twin. So what would you do? That is the scenario for Sunday's show. I hope you join me at 10 p.m. on Speaking Freely with Ms. Gecko. So the third segment is always the what would you do? And I give you a scenario, and then you give your opinion. And the topics for Sunday's show, one of them is love triangle, and the second one is the creative flow, your creative flow. Are you in your creative flow? And what I mean by that, creatives would know what I mean. If you're creative, you would know what I mean by being in your creative flow, where you got so many creative ideas coming into your mind, and you say to yourself, I can't do all of this, but you can do all of it. Anything creative that comes to your mind, you can do it. All you gotta do is you take 5 minutes or maybe 10 minutes a day, work on the first thing, jump to the next thing. You got to keep going. You can't, as a creator, you got to keep going. Don't stop. Even if it's an idea to open a business, or you got several ideas for a business, write them down, or what the business is that you want to do. And, anything else creative comes to you, could be you a songwriter, you write stories. It's a lot of stories is coming to you. Start writing them down. Write down the titles of what you think you want to call these stories, and then let the stories just come out to you, and you write them down on paper. Get you like the legal notepad, and just start writing and writing. Don't stop until you get about. I say don't stop it. If you're writing a story, don't stop until you get about 5 chapters. Don't stop until you get about 5 chapters.
You dropping gems, big brother dropping gems.
But that's basically what I'm going to be talking about on Sunday on the if you're in your creative flow. So we might as well get right into. We might as well forget the commercial. Just get right into the dropping gems.
All right, dropping gems, y'all. Here we go.
So we're gonna forget the commercials. We're just gonna get into dropping gems. Like I was saying, if you are creative and things are coming to you as a creative, get you either a notebook or a legal pad and write everything down. Keep writing, keep writing until whatever that is you was thinking is not in your mind anymore. It's on that paper. You can't see it because of the color of the book. There we go. Just saw it a little bit.
Green screen, haha. But yeah,
Yeah,
I got like at least one of these in every other room.
right.
I never
I
fold
got
it
some
in.
next to me as well that I don't know for the show. I don't know if mine the show. I got a folder. I got my. If you can see, I have my. It's upside down. My RTS folder. This in my. Oh, you can't see because of the green screen. But if I move back, maybe you can see it. If you can see it, so that is my RTS folder. In this folder is most of all the lyrics that I have written since last year till now. That is what's in that folder. All the lyrics that I've written since last year till now is in that folder. I don't know if you'll be able to see the color of my notebook, which is my favorite color. This notebook right here is one of many notebooks that I have. This notebook right here is where I write my stories in. I write my stories in this one. This one, I don't know if you can see because it's black and white, but this is another one that I write stories in. This little one I've had since I was in college, taking music business courses. And in here is lyrics. There's some lyrics in here. I got more notebooks, but I'm not going to keep showing you notebooks. That's what I mean by having notebooks around you, legal notepads, any kind of notepad. And if something creative comes to you, you write it down, write it down. As the other day, as I was, I won't say I was fully asleep, but as I was sleeping, because I wasn't fully awake either, I came up with an idea for I guess in the book world they would call it a murder mystery or thriller. I came up with a new story. I haven't written it yet because I've been working on writing songs, but I came up with a story while I was sleeping. So I have two stories. One is called The Tequila Murders. Now it's not like tequila, but it's called Tequila. The second one is called The Hennessy Murders. Now the Tequila Murders and the Hennessy Murders are related to each other because the murder in the first story is related to the murderer in the second story. So the murderer in the first story is the man. The murderer in the second story is a woman, and she's the daughter of the man in the first story. and I'm gonna tell you, in the second story, since it's a female-led character in that story, how she commits her murders is she goes to the nightclub, right? Everybody's been in the time or two in their life, they've been in the nightclub. And in the nightclub, the guy approaches her, trying to talk to her. She's not interested. And so, but in these scenarios where she meets these men who she killed, is they are club stalkers. This is a term I came up with, and I use in the story. Club stalker is a person that's in the club, and I'm sure a lot of women can relate to this, who ever been to a club, where there's one dude in the club who's following you around. So every inch you go into the club, he's there. It's like you can't get rid of him. And you go on the dance floor, he's on the dance floor trying to dance with you. You go to sit down with your group of friends, he's coming over to talk to you while you're sitting down with your group of friends. It's like you go to the bathroom, now he's outside the bathroom waiting for you to come out the bathroom. This is what I call a club stalker. So, in this story, The Hennessy Murders, every time she go to the club, she runs into a club stalker. And so, she just let them know she's not interested, but, the club stalker never gives up. Once they set their eye on a person, they're going to try by the end of the night to get that person. So, in the story, the club stalker follows her. She goes outside to get them. But before she goes outside, she goes to the bar. So, when going to the bar and you get a drink, and especially top shelf, it's a lot of money. And back in the days, I don't know, this before they called it bottle service. When you go to the bar and you say, I want the whole bottle of whatever you're drinking, they tell you it's about $80 for the bottle. Even though you don't pay that much in the liquor store for it, but in the club, you're gonna pay an arm and a leg for it. So when she's in the club and trying to get away from Club Stalker, goes to the bar, gets a bottle of Hennessy. This is why it's called the Hennessy Murders. Right? She goes outside. You know, in the club, you're not allowed to take alcohol outside. So she puts it in her bag so they can't see that she has the alcohol. And when she goes outside, the club stalkers is always following her. And so every club she goes to, and it's set in New York. I set it in New York from where I'm from. I set it in New York, and it's featuring each borough of New York City. So every murder she has committed is in every borough of New York City. And every club that it happens at, there's an alleyway. If you know what an alleyway is, you know some alleyways is one way in, there's no way out. So in the alleyway of the club, when you go to the alleyway, there's a back door of the club where they come out, where they throw their trash out from the night of the club. Well, because the club stalker's following her, that's where in the alleyways where she commits the murders. And when they find the body, they find a Hennessy bottle next to the dead body. And that's how it starts being called the Hennessy Murders. So when that story came to me, I said, you know what? I'm going to connect it to the previous story. And then I'm going to write on the previous story, which is the Tequila Murders. And then I'm going to do this one. And it's going to connect everything together. So like I said, as I was sleeping, a new one came to me called the Heartthrob Murders. And this is why I'm saying to y'all as creatives, if you're a creative writer, to always have a pad, a pen or a pencil or a notebook, pen or pencil by you, so that even if you sleep and the idea come to you, that you have a piece of paper to write down that idea. Because if you don't write it down, you're going to forget. And then when you finally do remember, it's going to be too late. Because sometimes, even though you don't share most of your ideas with people, someone is going to come out with the same idea that you came up with. And then you want to psych yourself out and say, I can't do that idea now because somebody came out with it. So always have the pen, the pencil, the paper, notepad, whatever by you, so that if an idea comes to you, you can write it down. Even if it's an idea to open up a business in the area where you at. If you are a person who's in a small town, because you know what I'm saying, it's not too many, most small towns don't have too many places where you can open up a business. But if you do have space in a small town to open a business, and the idea for a business come to you, and there's no type of business like that in your area, go ahead and write it down, map it out, and then put your idea to fruition. Make it come to life. You live in a small town, so I don't think it's gonna cost you that much to get the ball rolling on the business. Because all you got to scout where you're gonna put the business. And most small towns have spaces you can rent. So my dropping gems for today is always be in preparation to write down your ideas that come to you when you're sleeping, or even on whatever you're doing. Let's say you could be washing dishes. If an idea come to you when you're washing dishes, stop what you're doing, Find yourself a piece of paper, write it down before you lose the idea. So always be in preparation to write down ideas. If you're a creative writer, for stories, if you do poetry, for poetry, if you are a songwriter and a song idea comes to you, always have your paper, your pen, your pencil, and preparation to write it down when the idea comes to you. That is my dropping gems. And I will be talking more about the creative flow on Sunday on Speaking Freely with Ms. Gecko.
Okay.
And
No, I want to add.
hey,
I want to add one thing, Ro. Because what I do sometimes when I'm not able to get to my pen and my paper, because we like to have our little buddy everywhere. Most of
the
them,
notes section in your phone.
most of them have some type of note app, or in my case, I have my recorder. And you see,
Yeah.
all these is just little bits and pieces of song ideas that I record in the course of my day. So then I can go back later on and listen to them and see if it sounds like anything I want to work with. This is still the time I dream of sleeping with you. And then I go back later on and be like, okay, no, that was whack. Okay, I can work with that. That's a piece of something, and that triggers other things. So then you go to the various notebooks and go from there. So
So if you have your phone next to you, you don't have a piece of paper, use your voice memo. If you have an iPhone, you have voice memo and you have notes that you can use. Because I've done it. I
right,
have songs in my notes.
I know two songwriters that do it all the time: Taylor Swift and Lady Gaga. It's good enough for them. It's good enough for me.
So you so in a recent the past episode, you know, I did the Decades EP. I debuted the Decades EP in the past episode. I'm working on the second one, which is the answer songs to every song that is featured on the Decades EP. And this one's going to be called the Decades EP Part 2. And it's going to be featuring all female voice. So all female vocals are going to be on the second EP. And each female song is going to be the answer song to the first EP. Now, one of the songs that I have that's part of the So if you notice, if you go back to my YouTube page and you listen to the Decades EP, and the 70s song is called You Think I'm Not Your Type. So to answer that one, the female vocals on that is going to be singing the song You Was Always My Type. That's going to be the title for the 70s song to the second EP featuring female vocal. So the 90s song is You Belong, right? And in that song it talks about her belonging to a man who don't treat her right. The answer song to that one is called Finally Broke Free. Now the intro to the Decades EP, you have the is in 2000s R&B, and you have the guy saying "Welcome to the Decades," and it says we have songs from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. That's going to stay the same. That's not going to change. The only thing that's going to change about it is that it's going to be in female voice. So you're going to hear the same intro, but in female voice. There's no need to change it, make a new one, because you're basically saying the same thing again. Because you're giving them 50s, 70s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. Um, the 50s one, which is going to start off the second EP that I'm working on, is the 50s song is called From Lovers Lane to Down the Aisle. Yep, from Lovers Lane to Down the Aisle. So this is what I mean by, you know what I'm saying, to have that paper, your phone, whatever. You're creative, to jot the stuff down. It's like if you're watching TV and something come to you, figure it out. And that is it for this week's episode of the Indie Experience Podcast. This is episode 16, Classical Music. The next episode, we either might have a guest. If not a guest, I might just do classical back to back. I might do another classical right behind just doing this classical. Might do classical back to back. But Tuesday, it might change between now and Tuesday of what it's gonna be for this episode. But tune in on Sunday at 10 for the Speaker Freely Women's Gecko episode. And I'm gonna give you the scenario again, and then we're gonna get out of here. The scenario again for the third segment of the show, which is what would you do, is what if you was dating a twin and didn't know it? Because the person you're dating is a twin and never told you. So when we get into that segment, I'm going to share with you my story, and E's seen the story or read, because it's on my audio pod that's on Spotify, called The Same Guy. And this is what that scenario is based off of. She was dating a guy who was a twin, but he never told her because you know what happens with twins. One gets compared to the other, vice versa. And so he didn't like being compared to his twin. So when he was dating this girl, he never told her he was a twin. And like I said in the scenario, the caveat part is her friends saw him. The twin thought it was him and sent her a message saying, your man is out here on a date with another woman. He's cheating on you. She didn't want to believe it. But what made her suspicious is he came home with a doggy bag of food. We talked to him. He said he was at work. He worked overtime, but he comes home with a doggy bag of food. So if he was at work, where he get the doggy bag of food? And he says when he tells her that a co-worker brought him food. But the thing is, what's strange is the co-worker brought him his favorite food plus dessert. How many people tell their co-workers their favorite food and dessert? That's something to think about when answering the scenario on Sunday. I'm speaking for you, Miss Gecko. I am out. E is out. We'll see y'all next time. Peace, everybody.
All right, y'all. See ya.